Hey guys, it's Goosebumps Completionist, and today I'm bringing you a book versus movie video. And for today's subject, we're looking at R.L. Stine's Zombie Town. Book versus movie. The book slash short story here, I gave a perfect 5 out of 5 years ago. These days, I don't know if it would score that high, but I still think it's quite an A tier. Maybe somewhere around that 4.5, pushing to 4.8 range if I were going to deduct on anything. But for this video, I'll still keep it a 5 out of 5 just because I quite loved this when I read this, and I think fondly of it every time I think of it. In the movie here, I gave a 3.3 out of 5 stars, which is okay, meh. You know, it kind of upper end D tier for kids horror media, but still a lot of fun things to be had in it, and it's not a total wash or anything like that. So this is an odd case because R.L. Stine's Zombie Town, the novella here, came out in 2000 and 2001, and it was later reprinted under Amazon with Two Lions Publications in 2012. And the movie adaptation came out in 2023. Now, I have to say, going from the short story to the movie, I was let down with the film in a lot of ways, especially comparing my love and admiration for the story. However, there are a lot of things that are in the movie that just aren't in the book that I love quite a bit. And this is going to be one of those hard ones to compare because in a lot of ways, these are almost two different tales with just similar plot beats going on. So yeah, we have a lot to cover. If you're not familiar with how I do these like book versus movies or book versus episode or book versus novelization videos, I run down like the characters, I run down the atmosphere, the sometimes the aesthetic changes here, and I think there are some zombie aesthetics we can bring up here as well for this comparison, so I'll bring up aesthetics for that. And tone as well, because they do have different tones. We'll bring up overall plot, which one had a better one, the climax, and the ending. Okay, so that being said, let's start off with characters, because I feel like that's an easy place to start. Now, in both versions, the main character's name is Mike. And I will say off the bat, if I had to pick one, both aren't the greatest character ever, but I think one version has more to him. And I'm going to have to give it to the movie for Mike. Mike is played by Marlon Kazadi in the Zombie Town film. And I feel like there's just more character there to chew on in the film compared to the short story. Short story, Mike, he's just a kid that's afraid of horror movies, and his friend Karen drags him along to see it. And you get a sense of them kind of living live in color, and we get characterization throughout the story. Similarly to like something like the Haunted House Games episode with Jonathan and Nadine. Nothing too terrible in the book, very serviceable. However, in the movie, there's just more there. He has this romantic connection with Amy, even though it's kind of cringe. It's something to chew on, I guess. He does have a movie theater job since he's a high schooler, unlike a middle schooler in the book. And he has, I guess, more of a personality. He's kind of jaded from being bullied in his town. He has this character arc that's quite distinguishable in the film. So yeah, Mike wins in the film. Now, these next two, or I guess the next character, they have different names but kind of serve the same purpose. We have Karen / Amy. Karen's in the book, Amy's in the movie. If I had a preference on which one, honestly, they're kind of even here. Karen in the book, she's that friend that kind of peer pressures Mike to go see this horror film with her, and she kind of has some grisly moments in the story that make it kind of fun with her character. As in the film, she's just a love interest character with a little more going on. She has this crush on a guy, but then she ends up not having a crush on the guy anymore, ends up with Mike. It's like a coming-of-age romance tale, except, the guy gets the girl kind of thing. And yeah, they're both just there in the story, in my opinion, even though I think the movie definitely props her character up a little more just because the movie has more to the plot. I'm going to have to give it to none here. If I had a slight preference, I might give it to the movie, but I just don't. for this situation here. Now, for the rest of the characters, they're actually movie exclusive because the book here does not have much, minus maybe Mike's mom. So I guess we can, kind of mention that when we get there. But the characters in the movie, like Mesmerian, played by Chevy Chase. He's only in the movie, so by default he goes to the film. But Chevy Chase is definitely underutilized in the movie. Mesmerian's character is more of a sympathetic guy. He gets, railroaded, I should say, by the character known as Carver, played by Dan Aykroyd. And yeah, it is what it is. For Carver, played by Dan Aykroyd, I'm probably going to give, it goes the default to the film here, but I wish Carver was actually in the book. I think near the end, he might be there from memory. I think he is kind of a character. The director of the film is featured in the end of the short story, but the movie feels like we get a whole lot more with this character. So I guess we can do a comparison for this one, now that I'm thinking about it. If I had a preference, I'd give it to the film here for Carver. He's just a better character here, more to chew on. He's definitely layered. He has like a villain motif. He's definitely evil at first, but he has like a character growth thing going on for him and kind of learns his lesson. And it's kind of cool to see a person that's fallen from grace and is kind of the villain of the story getting rectified and becoming a hero, which is kind of cool. So I'll give it to Carver for the film. Now, like Mike's mom, she's in like one scene in the movie and she's hardly in the book. So I guess I'll give it to the movie just because her appearance does play a role in Mike's character progression. So there's that. The owner of the movie theater, I think, is only here, played by Nathan Zerny. He is turned into a zombie for a good portion of the film, and he's terribly acted and really goofy. Not much else to say. He's not really a positive to have in the story, but he's there. There's also the police officer, Mrs. Boneyard, some other characters that aren't in there. I can go on for a long time talking about these characters. They're all in the movie, and I do kind of wish that some of these were in this short story novella here. If this story was fleshed out into a full book, maybe these characters could have been in there. Highly doubt it since it came out in 2000, and the writers, Michael Samanek, Michael Schwartz, and Peter Leponitis, created some of these characters from scratch. But maybe something similar, I would hope, would have come out of it if it was a full book. So characters, I think so far the movie kind of wins out. They're just more fleshed out. They have more to them. So that's something that the film does quite well. Now, the atmosphere of the story, I think if we're looking at atmosphere, the film does a valiant effort in creating Carversville and with the budget that they had, right? Creating this zombie-like atmosphere with a meta thing, like this is a story within a story, or in this case, a movie within a movie. As in the book, it was like a movie within a book, or a story within a movie, something like that. But I will say the atmosphere is, I guess, it feels more there in the book. It's hard to explain. Both kind of have like this small town feel, but I feel like there's more to the story here. The way it's written, the way it's described, like the theater and all that, it's just a whole lot. There's more of a creepier atmosphere going on, and I prefer it in the book for that. So that's why I'm going to give the edge to the book here. Now for aesthetics, let's go ahead and start with tone, kind of bleeding into atmosphere. One story has a darker tone and one has a more campy, tongue-in-cheek tone. The movie's the campy and tongue-in-cheek one. You would think that a PG-13 film would be edgier, or at least as edgy as the book counterpart, but you'd be fooled here. There are some things about it that just are played for laughs that are just not funny. The book is definitely way more serious from the get-go. They both have this meta flair, but I think the book actually executed better. So in terms of tone and what it's going for, I'm probably going to give it to the book. I think the book has a better tone. And going into the second aesthetic, which is the mechanisms of the zombies and how they operate. They're more traditional zombies in the book, which I think is actually a better way to go, because the book zombies, they're actually like flesh eaters and they eat people alive, and there's blood. In the movie, they're like possessed by some Egyptian symbol or some like Egyptian artifact, and they have glowing eyes and they suck the souls out of people, then turn them into zombies. And they're not really that threatening, because of it. So if I had a preference for the zombie mechanism, I can applaud the movie for having some creativity there, and I can applaud the writers, but I'm going to have to give it to the book. I just think the book has a better zombie idea. It's more traditional, and it's definitely more scary. So that leads into the plot. Now, this might be the biggest hot take for a lot of you, because I know Zombie Town is definitely one of the most, if not the most divisive of the 6 R.L. Stine novellas. People just don't like how short it is. People think it needs to be expanded on. It doesn't feel full. But to me, the plot in the short story is definitely more eerie, because the way it's set up with like Mike, he's just apprehensive going to see a scary movie. Him and his friend Karen, they get locked into this theater. It's way more tense for them because they're actually 12-year-olds. And, what they see on the screen of the film is frightening. Then the zombies come through the theater and they get chased out and they try to find their families, and they end up having a dark quarrel with some zombies in their homes. The plot is just written to be a horror story. In the movie, however, the plot, I guess for like the first 25 minutes, you got to look at it like this way. This is a film, so they're going for more stylistic things here and there. The beginning, like the first, I would say 5 to 8 minutes is just set up with like clips of these former films and news footage. And then it's setting up these high schoolers, going through trials and tribulations before the events. It takes about 30 minutes for the plot to really kick on, like the short story did. Basically, all the film is like a softened version of the plot here. But there's a lot more to the plot in the film, I would say, because you have all these characters, like when you introduce the director Carver into the situation, and having the town legacy of his films, and all the town residents being obsessed with his movies and all that, it does offer a more layered story. So, there's just some give and takes here, because the movie does offer those messages and has like themes about, the director, for example, feels like all of his fans are mindless zombies that just care about his films and don't really care about themselves. And they're kind of like, they all echo the same thing. And he just sees them all as an enemy or something like that, which is kind of intriguing to think about. And the plot, there's more events to go along with than the short story. But what I love about the short story, right, is that it's sweet and to the point. I mean, it's just a short and sweet scary tale, and the movie kind of drags a little bit in the plot. They both have their things about them, to where if I had a preference, I kind of wish parts of the movie could have been put into the story here, and we could have made a full book out of it. And that's a testament to it. But I'm going to have to give the overall plot to the short story, just because there's less padding. And yeah, that's basically the main reason. So there's that. Now for the climax. The climax in both versions here are vastly different. I think the movie definitely takes a more heroic approach, where the kids are put into a situation where they're now forced to save the town. As in the book, before the meta ending, it's implied that they're about to just have a grisly fate, right? And it's pretty much do or die situations going on. I feel like there's more stakes in the climax in the book. There's just a lot more tension there. As in the movie, there's things like Egyptian pendants that keep these characters safe. There's no real stakes leading up to the climax, where they have to destroy all. It becomes like, well, you have to destroy all the film reel stuff. And yeah, it's just not that spectacular how the climax ends as well. The movie kind of putters, while the book was actually pretty gnarly. So for climax, I'm going to give it to the book. And which brings us to the ending. Now, the ending, in terms of like endings here, the movie doesn't quite end on a meta note, but it does at the same time, like in like the credits. The movie just ends on Amy and Mike, these two high school kids, finally getting together and agreeing to be in a relationship and having like a happy ending where they save the town, and you know, Mr. Carver was able to right some regrets he had in his life about his movies that he made and stuff like that, which is touching in like a Hallmark DCOM kind of way. And it's just a little milquetoast. The book ends on a meta note, and that kind of bleeds into the credit ending here, which I'm going to kind of compare. The meta note is just so much fun, and I love how meta it was. Some people might disagree with that, but that's just a taste thing. I think it was well done here for what it was trying to do. Here, it's kind of weird because you have like the characters of the movie. It's implied that the entire film that people just watched was a pitch, making it kind of like an all for nothing. But meta in itself makes it all for nothing. And it's not one of those all for nothing twists that just recontextualizes the whole story. It's just you throw it out in left field. It's not a recontextualization. Oh, you know, this is just a movie the whole time. And you get that in the movie. But I just think that I like it more in the book because it actually serves more to the story, as in the movie it's more of a nod to include R.L. Stine in the mix and kind of give maybe a nod to the production of the film. I can appreciate that, but I think the book wins out on the ending for me. So, comparing the two, you know, Zombie Town, which one is superior? The short story / book versus the movie. I think the movie definitely has better characters, and there are some parts of the plot that I think are a bit better that could have been put into the book to make it even better than it was. But it has serviceable atmosphere as well. But I just think the book wins out on areas more so often than the movie counterpart. So for the victor, I'm going to have to give it to the book. Now, here's the thing. The movie makes me really want to see other standalone R.L. Stine kids horror stories. I mentioned it in my review of this movie. I think like Zoomers, which is a short story that he made about like giant insects wreaking havoc on a town, or Creatures from Beyond, which is like a wild, completely zany alien invasion story with some body horror. Or maybe it's The First Day of School Forever, which is kind of like Groundhog Day, but kind of horrific for a kid, you know? Stuff like this could easily be made into movies. And I think that's probably the best route to go for stuff that Stine has made outside of like these big franchises that he's known for, like Goosebumps or The Nightmare Room or Haunting Hour or Mostly Ghostly. The list goes on. I would love to see, what is this? TriMuse Entertainment or maybe some other company that's not Netflix or Disney pick up some of these scripts and try to make films out of them. And I say this with love and passion for this subgenre. Please stop underselling kids horror, please. I get making the story, changing the story to high schoolers is good for like production work and hiring actors, and it's, you know, getting around child labor laws and all that, and it's more, you know, you get actors with more experience. You can add cheap relationship stuff to make it, you know, I guess easier for like older teens to gravitate to. I can understand that, but try to make it closer to the source material. Make a true PG-13 movie. This movie was PG-13. It could have been as dark as the book, but the only reason why it got a PG-13 was that they wanted to make a PG movie, but some of the cursing in the film and I guess the zombie effects were enough for them to make it a PG-13 movie. Next go around, just go in with that rating in mind. Make it a little darker. Be closer to the books. Actually have middle graders as the main characters. Make something that's relatable for these kids, not something that you're just making to, you know, I don't know, just make. You know, it's sad. But if you haven't seen the Zombie Town movie, definitely go read the book first and then go watch the film. This is actually one of those things where I can see people being a complete toss-up for. Zombie Town doesn't appear to be for everyone. Neither does this film. This film has gotten slammed in reviews, and I can totally see some of you out there thinking that the movie's better. But I digress. Go try these out, and let me know down in the comment section what you think about Zombie Town, the book / short story, or the movie. Which one do you prefer? Which one do you think is better? I'm dying to know, and I'll see you next time.